This episode is about drop, drop, slow tears. Let's delve behind the dots. The commission for a new setting of Drop, Drop, Slow Tears came from a couple in the States called David and Judith Akers, who had been good friends with James Bowman. So when James Bowman died, they asked if I would write a piece in memory of him, which I was delighted to do, especially because James and I had sung together a few times ourselves, and I always adored him, and especially his mad sense of humour. And of course, he was just as well known for his extraordinary countertenor voice. We chose this text because James Bowman's performance of Gibbon's setting of Drop, Drop, Slow Tears is so iconic. And I thought it would be fun to set the same words, but in a different style. As ever, when I'm setting a text, I like to read the words aloud to myself a few times until I start to find a melody and a sound world. With these words, Drop, Drop, Slow Tears, I wanted to find an opening melody which sounded like the dropping of tears. And so eventually I came up with this little figure. Drop, drop, slow tears. Drop, slow tears. Drop, slow tears. By having two quavers on each iteration of the word drop, and then drop, drop, slow, with a tenuto followed by a staccato, I hopefully evoked this sense of dropping. I also wanted to allude to Baroque music because James was so famous for his performances and recordings of Baroque music. And this idea of quavers that lighten off and the second of each pair of quavers is very idiomatically Baroque. So that was a little hint of the music that James Bowman adored so much. I also made the opening melody deliberately in the alto line of the choir so that it was the alto voice that you were aware of first of all when you hear the piece. So if you're performing this piece with your choir and you happen to have a wonderful alto, then there's the option to do this opening phrase as a solo, and then the rest of the piece would be with the whole alto section. That's up to you. I chose F sharp minor for this piece because it's such a mournful key in some ways, and also because its relative key of A major was just so perfectly suited to a verse later on in the piece. So the whole setting plays between this F sharp minor and an A major relationship. So the underneath parts, when they come in after this alto opening, they sing drop, drop, slow tears. I'm a great fan of rests for effect rather than rest because the singers need to breathe. Most singers would not need to breathe after one dotted crotchet. But the point of it is drop, drop, slow tears, drop, slow tears, drop, slow tears. And I've got this quite sort of quasi-Baroque descending bass line as well, almost Purcellian. And again, that's deliberate to allude to this Baroque repertoire which James Bowman was so famous for singing and interpreting. And then towards the end of that first verse, we get the word heaven. And for heaven, I wanted to rise up an octave in the soprano. Just because it's so nice to reach upwards for words like heaven or sky or temple. I think these big leaps in a vocal line are so evocative in that sense. And then the second verse begins very similarly. Cease not wed eyes. And the ear expects again this F sharp minor tonality. But instead here, cease not wanted to go into the relative major key of A major, but keeping the Fs natural, not sharp as they would normally be in A major. So we call that a flattened sixth. And so it retains its mournful aspect, but within the context of A major. When I was researching for this piece, I discovered that I didn't realise what this piece was about before at all. It's actually the tears of Mary Magdalene as she cries on Jesus's feet and then dries his feet with her hair. So it's a double meaning in a sense. We might be crying because we're mourning the loss of somebody, but we're also crying because water is healing and water is washing Jesus's feet. Then for the final verse, I put the opening melody in the tenors. In your deep floods. And here, it's much lower tessitura generally, so same music but lower in the ranges, and that's because I was setting the words in your deep floods. Drown all my faults and fears. So it was really a good opportunity to showcase the lower voices in the choir and give them a bit of a feature, but again, driven by the text. And again, I had this dilemma every time when I'm setting a piece in a minor key, whether to end on the minor or the major. I tried both. I wrote both, I went into the studio and recorded both versions, and eventually I settled on this version. So if you enjoyed that little taster of the recording by London Voices, you can hear the whole rendition on this album, Heaven to Earth. It's a really beautiful recording. So I hope that this short introduction to my setting of Drop Drop Slow Tears has inspired you to sing it with your choir. The sheet music is available from the Royal School of Church Music.